The Valari Empire had ruled the stars for 12,000 years. They'd conquered 1,000 worlds. They had crushed every enemy who dared to stand against them. Their ships were the most powerful in the galaxy. Their soldiers were the most feared. For generations, no one had questioned their power, but all empires fall. The Civil War started over something small, a dispute about trade routes, a disagreement between two powerful families, but small fires can burn down forests, and this small dispute grew into something terrible. Brother turned against brother. Fleet fought against fleet. Worlds that had been peaceful for centuries burned under orbital bombardment. Then came the plague. No one knew where it started. Some said it was a weapon that escaped from a laboratory. Others said it was nature's punishment for the Empire's sins. It did not matter where it came from. What mattered was what it did. Billions died. Entire planets went silent. The great empire that had ruled for so long crumbled like old paper in the rain. Admiral Korn remembered the glory days. He had been young then, a junior officer on a battleship that could destroy moons. He had believed the empire would last forever. Now he stood on the bridge of a damaged cruiser, leading a fleet of refugees and desperate raiders across the dying edges of known space. His fleet was not impressive anymore. 42 ships. Some were warships. Some were cargo vessels filled with starving families. Some were held together by nothing but hope and prayers. They needed food. They needed fuel. They needed a place to rebuild. The Galactic Council had formed from the ashes of the old empire. It was a weak thing, a collection of small powers trying to maintain order in a universe that had forgotten what order meant. When Korran's fleet passed through their territory, they sent a message. "You may take what you need from the outer worlds," the message said, "but there is one place you must not go. Do not enter the soul exclusion zone. Do not approach the human territories. Do not wake them. They sleep now. Let them remain sleeping." Curran read the message 3 times. Then he laughed. Humans. He remembered them from his history lessons. A young species from a small planet. They had achieved faster than light travel only 3 centuries ago. The old empire had classified them as promising but irrelevant. They were like children playing with toys while adults built civilizations. Why would anyone fear them? His second in command, a tired old soldier named Vex, stood beside him on the bridge. "Admiral, should we respect the warning?" "What warning?" Korran asked. "The Council has no power to enforce anything. They are just frightened survivors pretending to be leaders." "But the humans are nothing," Korran said firmly. "They hide in their little corner of space. They have a few colonies in their home system. Their technology is primitive compared to what we had in our prime. We need resources. Their outer stations have resources. It is simple mathematics." Vex did not look convinced. "I have heard stories, Admiral. Old stories from before the war." "Stories are for children," Korran replied. "We are soldiers. We deal in facts. And the facts are clear. We are stronger than them. We take what we need. We survive. That is how the universe works." The fleet changed course toward Sol. On the frozen moon of Europa, a small mining station sat beneath kilometers of ice. The station was called Europa 7. It was not an important place. 200 workers lived there, drilling through ice to reach the ocean below. They extracted minerals. They processed water. They sent shipments to the inner colonies. It was boring work, but it was honest. Yuna was an engineer on Europa 7. She was 26 years old. She had grown up on Mars, studied engineering on the moon, and taken a job in the outer system because she wanted adventure. So far, the most exciting thing that had happened was a broken water recycler last month that changed on a cold Tuesday morning. She was working on a sensor array when the alarm started. It was not the normal alarm for meteor warnings or pressure drops. It was the other alarm, the one she had never heard outside of training exercises, the one that meant enemy contact. Yuna ran to the observation deck. Through the thick windows, she could see the sky above the ice. Ships were descending through the clouds. Not human ships. These were different, larger, darker, covered with weapons that glowed with angry red light. "All personnel report to emergency stations," the announcement system said. The voice was calm, but Yuna could hear the fear beneath the calm. "This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill." Station Commander Park grabbed her shoulder. He was an older man, a retired military officer who had taken the quiet job to enjoy his final years before retirement. His face was pale. "Yuna, I need you to do something," he said. "The main communication array is down. Someone damaged it during the panic. I need you to reach the backup transmitter in Section 7. I need you to send a message." "What message?" she asked. He pressed a small data chip into her hand. "This one. Send it to Earth. Send it everywhere. Do not stop until you are sure someone heard it."
Yuna looked at the chip.
Then she looked at the ships descending through the ice clouds. There were so many of them. "What about the evacuation?" she asked. "We will handle that," Commander Park said. "You handle the message. Go now, run." Yuna ran. The corridors of Europa 7 were filled with chaos. People screamed and pushed. Children cried. Emergency lights flashed red and white. Yuna pushed through the crowd, her heart beating so fast she thought it might break free from her chest. Section 7 was empty when she arrived. The backup transmitter was old and dusty. No one had used it in years. Yuna plugged in the data chip and activated the system. The screen glowed green. Connection established. She pressed the transmit button. The message was simple. Just a few words. But those few words would change everything. "They are here. They have attacked. Wake the others." The transmission went out into the darkness of space. Yuna did not know if anyone would hear it. She did not know if it would matter. Outside, the first Valari landing ships were touching down on the ice. But somewhere in the inner system, someone was listening, and they began to wake. The Valari soldiers expected screaming. They expected begging. They expected the pathetic cries of a conquered people. That was what always happened when the Empire took a world. The weak fell to their knees. The strong were killed quickly. The rest became servants. Europa-7 gave them none of these things. When the soldiers broke through the main doors, they found empty corridors. The lights still worked. The air systems still hummed. Food sat half-eaten on tables in the cafeteria. But there were no people. 200 workers had vanished like smoke in the wind. Squad leader Torvin checked every room. Nothing. He checked the storage areas. Empty. He checked the medical bay. The sleeping quarters, the engineering sections, all empty? Where did they go? One of his soldiers asked. Torvin looked at the floor. There were scratches in the metal. Drag marks leading toward the back of the station. He followed them to a heavy door marked "Ice tunnels authorized personnel only." The door was locked from the other side. They went into the ice, Torvin reported to Admiral Korin. The tunnels extend 400 kilometers beneath the surface. We would need thousands of soldiers to search them all. Korin was annoyed. He had expected easy prisoners. He had expected valuable equipment. Instead, he had an empty station and a lot of wasted time. "Forget them," he ordered. "They are just miners. They will freeze to death in the tunnels. Move to the next target." The fleet spread across the outer Sol system like a disease. Titan was next, then Ganymede, then the asteroid belt colonies. At each location, they found the same thing. Empty stations, missing equipment, silence. It was as if the humans knew they were coming, Captain. Kate watched the Valari fleet from the darkness between moons. His ship, the Silent Fury, was small and old. On paper, it had been decommissioned 20 years ago. In reality, it had been upgraded, modified, and hidden. It was one of many such ships scattered throughout the system. Tay was 43 years old. He had served in the United Earth Navy for 20 years. Most of that time had been spent in what the military called quiet. Readiness. Training, waiting, preparing for a day that everyone hoped would never come. That day had arrived. How many ships do they have? His second officer, Lieutenant Su, asked. 42, Tay replied. 12 are true warships. The rest are support vessels and refugee transports. Their weapons? Old but functional. They could destroy any of our civilian stations without difficulty. Su nodded slowly. What are our orders? Tay smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of a man who had waited a very long time for something. We wait for them to spread out. Then we hunt. The first Valari ship to die was the Crimson Dawn. It was a destroyer, one of the smaller warships in Corrin's fleet. It had been sent to investigate an unusual signal near one of Jupiter's moons. The signal was bait. The silent fury struck from below, rising from the shadow of the moon like a predator emerging from deep water. The first shot disabled the Crimson Dawn's shields. The second destroyed its engines. The third tore through the reactor core. The entire attack took 11 seconds. No distress signal was sent. The Crimson Dawn simply stopped existing. One moment it was a ship full of living beings. The next moment it was an expanding cloud of debris and frozen bodies. Admiral Corrin did not notice immediately. Space was vast. Ships sometimes lost contact. It was only when the second ship vanished that he began to worry. The second ship was the Iron Hammer, a heavy cruiser sent to investigate what happened to the Crimson Dawn. It found the debris field. It sent a report. Then its signal cut off mid-sentence. What is happening? Corrin demanded. Unknown, Admiral, his communications officer replied. We are receiving no signals from either ship. No emergency beacons. No escape pod transmissions. Nothing. Corrin felt something he had not felt in many years. Fear. Real fear. The kind that crawled up your spine and whispered terrible things in your ear. Pull the fleet back, he ordered. All ships. Defensive formation around the flagship. It was too late. The attacks came from everywhere and nowhere. Ships that had been drifting silently through the asteroid fields suddenly came alive. Weapons fired from positions that sensors showed as empty space. Missiles emerged from inside hollowed-out rocks. Valari ships exploded one after another. Captain Tay was not alone. There were dozens of ships like the Silent Fury, small, fast, deadly. They did not fight like the old Empire's enemies had fought. They did not form battle lines. They did not announce themselves. They struck from shadows and vanished before anyone could respond. In 3 hours, Corrin lost 8 ships. We need to retreat, Vex said. His voice was shaking. Admiral, we need to leave this system immediately. Go where? Corrin snapped. We have nowhere else to go. Our fuel reserves are nearly empty. Our food supplies are running low. If we run now, we die slowly in the darkness between stars. If we stay here, we die quickly. Corrin stared at the tactical display. Red icons marked the positions of his remaining ships. Black icons marked the locations where ships had been destroyed. There were too many black icons. These are not the humans we were told about, he said quietly. These are not primitive apes with simple technology. These are something else. On the Silent Fury, Captain Tay watched the Valari fleet retreat toward Titan. His crew was tired but satisfied. They had done their job well. Should we pursue? Lieutenant Su asked. At? No, Tay replied. Let them run. Let them gather together. Let them think they are safe. He turned away from the display. The main fleet will arrive soon. When it does, there will be nowhere left for them to run. Su looked at him curiously. Captain, what did these people do to make us so angry? They killed some miners on Europa. It is terrible, but is it worth all this? Tay was silent for a long moment. Then he spoke softly. It is not about what they did, Lieutenant. It is about what they represent. We told the galaxy we wanted peace. We told them to leave us alone. We gave them one simple rule. His eyes hardened. They broke that rule. Now they will learn why it existed. The darkness between worlds was no longer empty. It was full of patient hunters, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Far from Sol, in a space station orbiting a dying star, the Galactic Council held an emergency meeting. The council chamber was a vast, circular room with seats rising in tiers around a central platform. Representatives from 37 species filled those seats. Most of them looked afraid. Elder Mova stood at the center of the platform. She was old, even by the long-lived standards of her species. Her skin was pale blue, wrinkled like ancient paper. Her eyes had seen empires rise and fall. She had been alive when the Valari were at their peak. She had been alive during the dark times that no one talked about anymore. "We have received a transmission from Admiral Corrin," she announced. Her voice was soft but carried to every corner of the room. "He is requesting assistance. He says he is under attack by an unknown enemy with advanced technology. He says he has lost many ships. He is begging us to send help." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Ambassador Thren, a representative from the Cathani worlds, raised his hand. "Unknown enemy? Does he not know who is attacking him?" "He knows," Elder Mova replied. "He simply does not wish to believe it." "The enemy is human." Murmurs became shouts. Some representatives looked confused. Others looked terrified. A few simply closed their eyes, as if they had known this moment would come eventually. "Impossible," Ambassador Thren said. "The humans are a minor species. They have primitive technology. They lack the ships and weapons to threaten a Valari fleet." "That is what the old empire wanted you to believe," Elder Mova said. "That is what they wanted everyone to believe. But it was a lie. The greatest lie ever told in the history of our galaxy." She pressed a button on her control pad. The lights dimmed. A holographic display appeared in the center of the chamber, showing images from long ago. Ships burning in space. Planets covered in smoke. Soldiers running through destroyed cities. 800 years ago, the Valari Empire decided to conquer Earth. They sent a fleet of 10,000 warships. 10,000. It was the largest invasion force ever assembled. The humans had fewer than 200 ships to defend themselves. By all logical calculations, the war should have lasted 1 week. The display showed a small blue planet, Earth. It looked peaceful and beautiful. Covered in clouds and oceans, the war lasted 17 years. Silence filled the chamber. Complete, absolute silence. 17 years, Elder Mova repeated. 10,000 of the most advanced warships in the galaxy against a species that had only discovered. Faster than light travel 50 years earlier, and the war lasted 17 years. How is that possible? Someone asked. Elder Mova changed the display. Now it showed battle records, ship movements, casualty reports. The numbers were staggering. The humans did not fight the way we expected. They did not form battle lines. They did not follow the rules of war. They learned. Every time we developed a new tactic, they adapted. Every time we deployed a new weapon, they found a way to counter it. Every time we thought we had one, they surprised us with something new. She paused, letting the words sink in. The Empire lost 60% of its invasion fleet. 60%. 6,000 warships destroyed by a species we had dismissed as primitive. And here is the truly terrifying part. By the end of the war, the humans were not just defending anymore. They were attacking. They had reverse-engineered our technology. They had built their own warships using our designs, but improved. They were pushing into Empire territory. Ambassador Thren looked sick. Why did no one tell us this? Why is this not in our history books? Because the Empire erased it, Elder Mova said simply. They could not admit that they had been defeated by young apes from a small planet. It would have destroyed their reputation. It would have encouraged rebellion throughout the Empire. So they erased every record. They killed every historian who knew the truth. They created a new story, a story where the humans were primitive and irrelevant. She turned off the display. The lights returned to normal. The peace treaty that ended the 17-year war was not a human surrender. It was a mutual agreement. The humans agreed to stay in their system. They agreed to limit their expansion. They agreed to sleep. In return, the Empire agreed to never return, to never attack Earth again, to leave humanity alone. Why would the humans agree to limit themselves? Another representative asked. Elder Mova's eyes grew sad. Because they were afraid. not of us, of themselves. She walked slowly around the platform, looking at each representative in turn. During the war, the humans did terrible things. Things that shocked even their own people. They created weapons that could destroy entire planets. They developed biological agents that could wipe out entire species. They built machines that could think and kill without human control. They looked into the darkness inside themselves, and they found something terrifying. What did they find? They found that they had no limits, no boundaries, no point where they would say enough is enough. When pushed, humans will do anything to survive. Anything. They will sacrifice their own children. They will burn their own worlds. They will become monsters worse than any nightmare we could imagine. Elder Muva stopped at the center of the platform again. After the war, human leaders made a decision. They chose to sleep. They chose to focus on peace, on art, on science, on building a better civilization. They hid their weapons. They disbanded their war fleets. They tried to forget what they were capable of becoming. She looked up at the representatives with ancient, tired eyes. Admiral Corrin woke them up. He reminded them of what they are, and now they will remind him. They will remind all of us. What should we do? Ambassador Thren asked. Should we send help to Corrin? Elder Mova shook her head slowly. No, there is nothing we can do. Admiral Corrin is already dead. He simply does not know it yet. Then what should we do? Pray, Elder Muva said. Pray that the humans remember mercy. Pray that they choose to sleep again when this is over. Pray that they do not decide to wake completely. The council chamber fell silent again. Outside the windows, stars burned coldly in the darkness. Somewhere in that darkness, humanity was stirring, and the galaxy held its breath. Deep beneath the mountains of Old Korea, there was a bunker. It had been built 300 years ago, during the reconstruction after the Great War. On the surface, it looked like nothing special. A small research facility. A weather monitoring station. Nobody important lived there. Nobody important worked there. That was the lie. Fleet Admiral Day stood in the command center of the bunker, surrounded by screens and maps and officers who had not slept in days. He was 62 years old. His hair was gray. His face was lined with wrinkles. But his eyes were sharp and clear. And his voice carried the authority of a man who had trained his entire life for this moment. Report, he said. His daughter, Commander Hannah, stepped forward. She was 34, with her father's sharp eyes and her mother's gentle face. She had never seen real combat. None of them had. The peace had lasted so long that war had become something from history books, until now. Confirmed casualties. 159 civilians across outer system stations. Europa 7, Titan 3, Ganymede Mining Complex, and several belt colonies were attacked. Most personnel evacuated successfully through emergency protocols. Most, Admiral Day repeated. Not all. No, sir, not all. Day closed his eyes for a moment. 159 lives. Miners, engineers, teachers, children, people who had done nothing wrong except live in the wrong place at the wrong time. People who had trusted that the peace would hold. What is the status of the enemy fleet? Reduced to 31 ships from the original 42. Captain Tay's hunter groups have been effective. The enemy has pulled back to a defensive position near Titan. And our losses? Hannah hesitated. None, sir. We have not lost a single ship. Someone might have expected Admiral Day to smile at this news. He did not. He knew what was coming next. He knew what he had to do. And he knew that once he did it, there would be no going back. Has the Council of Admirals assembled? They are waiting in the war room, sir. Day nodded. He straightened his uniform, took a deep breath, and walked through the heavy doors into the war room. The room was circular, with a large table in the center. Around the table sat 7 people. The highest-ranking military officers on Earth, the commanders of the fleets that did not officially exist, the keepers of humanity's darkest secrets. Admiral Day, said Admiral Song, the oldest member of the council. We have reviewed the situation. We are ready to hear your recommendation. Day took his seat at the head of the table. My recommendation is simple. Wake the sleeper fleet. The words hung in the air like thunder before lightning. All of it. Admiral Kim asked. She was the youngest member of the council, only 45. We have never activated the full fleet. Not even in simulations. These are not simulations, Day replied. These are invaders in our home. They have killed our people. They have ignored our warnings. They have reminded us why we built the sleeper fleet in the first place. Admiral Song leaned forward. If we wake the full fleet, the galaxy will see. They will know what we have been hiding. The fear that has protected us for 800 years will become something else. Something that might invite attack instead of preventing it. The fear only protects us if people believe we are willing to use what we have, Day said. Right now, a defeated remnant of a fallen empire is sitting in our system, killing our people. If we do not respond with full force, others will see weakness. They will think the warnings were exaggerations. They will come. The council members looked at each other. The decision was not easy. It had never been meant to be easy, Vote Admiral Song said. One by one, the admirals raised their hands. 6 in favor. 1 against. Admiral Kim, the youngest, was the only one who hesitated. But after a moment, she too raised her hand. The vote is unanimous, Admiral Song announced. Wake the sleeper fleet. Cross the solar system. Signals went out. Encrypted commands that had been waiting for centuries. Codes that had been passed down from generation to generation, never used, always ready, on Luna. Beneath the gray dust of the far side, doors opened in the rock. Ships emerged. Not dozens, hundreds. Carriers the size of small cities. Destroyers bristling with weapons. Support vessels carrying enough supplies to fight a war for years. In the asteroid belt, rocks that had drifted silently for centuries suddenly came alive. Their surfaces cracked open, revealing hidden bays filled with fighters and bombers. Engines ignited. Navigation systems activated. Crews who had been living as miners and farmers put on uniforms they had kept hidden in their closets, on Mars. In the deep canyons where no satellite could see, launch bays opened to the thin air. Ships rose into the pink sky like birds taking flight. They were painted red, the color of the planet they had called home. And they flew in perfect formation toward the outer system. Lieutenant Wu watched from the observation deck of the colony ship, the New Dawn. He was 23 years old. He had grown up hearing stories from his grandmother about the old war. She had been a child during the Reconstruction. She had told him about the fear, the darkness, terrible things that humans had done to survive. He had thought she was exaggerating. Old people always exaggerated. Now, watching the endless parade of warships emerging from their hiding places, he realized she had been holding back. She had not told him the full truth because the full truth was too frightening. How many ships are there? He asked the officer beside him. The officer, a tired woman with gray in her hair, looked at her datapad. Current count is 4,600 and climbing. We are still receiving activation confirmations from across the system. 4,000 ships, and more coming every minute. Why did we hide all of this? Wu asked. The officer looked at him with sad eyes. Because we hoped we would never need it. Because we wanted to believe the peace would last forever. Because keeping these ships hidden was easier than explaining to our children why they existed. She turned back to the window. Now our children will have to learn the truth. Now they will have to see what their ancestors were capable of, and they will have to decide if they want to be the same. Lieutenant Wu watched the fleet gather. Thousands of ships, each one a monument to humanity's capacity for violence. Each one a reminder that peace was not natural. Peace was something you had to fight for, something you had to protect, and sometimes to protect peace. You had to be willing to destroy everything that threatened it. The sleeper fleet was awake, and it was hungry. Admiral Corrin stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Pride of Valerie, and watched his death approach. The human fleet did not come all at once. That would have been merciful. Instead, they came in waves. First the scout ships, small and fast, circling the Valari formation like wolves around injured prey. Then the destroyers, medium-sized vessels that took positions at every exit point, cutting off any hope of escape. Finally, the carriers, massive ships that blotted out the stars behind them. Corin counted the enemy ships until he lost count. There were too many. Far too many. How is this possible? Vex whispered beside him. The intelligence reports said they had a few hundred ships at most. The intelligence reports were wrong, Corin replied. His voice was flat, empty. The voice of a man who had already accepted his fate. The intelligence reports were always wrong. He had 31 ships left. 11 of them were warships capable of fighting. The rest were transports filled with refugees, families who had followed him, hoping to find a new home. Now they would find only death. Admiral, his communications officer, said, "We are receiving a transmission from the human fleet. Put it through." The main screen flickered. A human face appeared, a man in a dark uniform with captain's insignia on his collar. His expression was calm, almost peaceful. "This is Captain Tay of the United Earth Navy ship Silent Fury. I am offering you one chance to surrender. Power down your weapons. Lower your shields. Prepare to be boarded. If you comply, your civilian ships will be allowed to leave in peace. If you refuse, none of you will survive the next 10 minutes." Corin looked at the screen for a long moment. Part of him wanted to fight. Part of him wanted to go down in glory, to die like a true Valari warrior. But then he thought about the children on those transport ships, the families who had trusted him, the innocents who would die for his pride. "We accept your terms," he said quietly. The surrender was quick and efficient. Human boarding parties appeared on every Valari ship within minutes. They were professional, disciplined, almost polite. They secured weapons, confined crew members to quarters, and took control of all systems. There was no violence, no revenge, just cold, methodical precision. Corin was escorted to a shuttle and taken to the largest carrier in the human fleet, a massive vessel named Unity. He was placed in a clean room with comfortable furniture and told to wait. Hours passed. He sat alone with his thoughts, wondering what would happen next. Finally, the door opened. A woman walked in. She was young, maybe 35, wearing the uniform of a commander. Her face was hard but not cruel. She looked like someone who had made difficult decisions and learned to live with them. "Admiral Corin," she said. "I am Commander Hannah of the United Earth Defense Force. I have been sent to deliver a message." Corin stood slowly. His legs felt weak. "What message?" "You will be released," Hannah said. "You and your crew will be given supplies and fuel. You will be allowed to leave our system, but you will not leave empty-handed. You will take something with you. A warning." She walked to the window and looked out at the stars. The human fleet stretched across the void like a wall of metal and light. "We were sleeping," she said quietly. "For 800 years we chose to sleep. We put away our weapons. We forgot our wars. We tried to build something better than what we had been before." She turned to face him. "We told the galaxy to leave us alone. One simple rule. Do not enter our space. Do not threaten our people. Let us sleep in peace. That was all we asked." Corin said nothing. There was nothing to say. "You broke that rule," Hannah continued. "You came into our home. You killed our people. You reminded us of what we are." She stepped closer, and Corin saw something in her eyes. Not anger. Something worse. Sadness. Deep, terrible sadness. "We are the species that crawled out of the mud and reached for the stars. We are the species that survived ice ages and plagues and wars that killed millions. We are the species that looked at the universe and refused to accept our place in it." Her voice grew harder. "We are the species that created weapons even we were afraid to use. We are the species that carries monsters inside us, monsters we work every day to keep chained." She leaned close to Corin's face. "You woke those monsters up. You reminded us why we built them. And now you will go back to whatever is left of your empire, and you will tell them what you saw here." "What did I see?" Corin asked. "You saw mercy," Hannah replied. "This is what our mercy looks like. We could have destroyed every ship in your fleet. We could have hunted down every survivor. We could have made an example so terrible that the galaxy would never forget it. She stepped back. Instead, we are letting you go. We are giving you a second chance, but there will not be a third chance. If anyone else comes into our space with hostile intent, we will not be merciful. We will not take prisoners. We will not leave survivors to carry warnings. She walked to the door. Go home, Admiral. Tell the galaxy what you learned. Tell them that humanity was sleeping and that we have decided to sleep again. But tell them also that we sleep with one eye open now. And tell them that if they wake us again, we will not stop at our borders. She paused at the doorway. The next time humanity wakes, it will be the last time. Not for us. For everyone else. Then she was gone. 3 days later, Admiral Corrin's fleet limped out of the Sol system. They had been given food, fuel, and medical supplies. They had been treated with respect and dignity, and they had been given a memory that would haunt them for the rest of their lives. On Earth, Admiral Day stood with his daughter, watching the Valari ships disappear into the darkness between stars. Do you think they will listen? Hannah asked. Well, Day replied, some will not. There are always fools who think they are different, who think they can succeed where others failed. And when they come, Day was silent for a moment. Then he smiled, a tired old man's smile full of sadness and hope. Then we will teach them the same lesson, again and again, until they learn. Or until there's no one left to teach. Hannah looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there, civilizations were rising and falling. Wars were being fought. Empires were crumbling. The galaxy was full of violence and chaos and fear. But here, in this small corner of space, there was peace. A fragile peace, protected by the threat of overwhelming violence. A peace that required eternal vigilance. The sleeper fleet returned to its hiding places. The soldiers went back to their homes. The weapons were hidden away once more. Humanity closed its eyes and tried to dream of better things, but now they slept with one eye open. Always watching, always waiting, always ready, and in the darkness between stars. The galaxy remembered why it feared the small blue planet called Earth. Not because humans were the strongest, not because they had the best technology, but because when pushed, when threatened, when forced to fight, they had no limits. None at all.